Yu-Gi-Oh! Reshef of Destruction came out in Japan on March 20th, 2003, and came stateside on June 29th, 2004. Reshef of Destruction serves as one of the few actual game sequels that has its own original story, unlike the Tag Force and latter World Championship games, which follow the story of the anime, but you are there. One of the reasons it is so special is because this was an original story that is unique to this game, taking place after your own OC took down Merrick in Battle City. This game became rather infamous for its difficulty, and asked players to specifically game the system in a way that the Duel Monsters line of games never had before. Reshef also marks the end of an era for this franchise. Not only is it the final true Duel Monsters game following that rule set, we were also well into the show's popularity worldwide, and by the time this game came stateside, the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime would be just months away from airing its final episode in Japan. However, as always, we should begin proper by taking a look at the promo cards released with this game. Let's discuss the promo cards for the releases of these games, as I think it's one of the most interesting parts of all of these games, and none of you are ever going to convince me otherwise. In Japan, this game came with only 3 promo cards, which were Knight's Title, Sage's Stone, and Satellite Cannon. If you pre-ordered the game, you could get Dark Magician Knight. In a rare moment of unity, the US would receive Dark Magician Knight, Knight's Title, and Sage's Stone, relegating Satellite Cannon to exclusively reprint sets and champion packs for years. Other European territories would receive the US Sacred Cards lineup. None of these new cards would ever see competitive play. However, Dark Magician Knight's release here in the US paired pretty well with its debut in the anime. So as a small child, I was very excited about this, and even took a deck with Knight's Title and Dark Magician Knight in it to a local. That's a true story. Speaking of stories, Reshef of Destruction follows the continuing adventures of Yugi, Joey, and whoever the hell you are on a globe-trotting journey to collect cards that contain the Millennium items in order to restore power to the God cards and prevent the revival of Reshef the Dark Being. Functionally, this game becomes a greatest hits of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rogues Gallery working together with a decidedly not dead Pegasus to destroy the world. All the while, you work together with a culmination of all of your favorite friends from Yu-Gi-Oh! To defeat these villains and restore power to the God cards. Utilizing the same map layout as the Sacred Cards for Domino City, but quickly expanding out into other countries like Canada and China, you can face the Paradox Brothers in a truly international affair. There are several side events that reference events from the manga and anime, including setting the love affair for Serenity between Duke and Tristan, and taking a parody of the Big Five's virtual representations from Season 3 of the anime. As you encounter various events and defeat different duelists to obtain the Millennium items, and slowly revive all of the God cards, you eventually come to discover that the villain you've been chasing this whole time, Sol Chevalsky, is actually none other than Pegasus, who is neither a zombie from the manga, or a converted villain like in the anime. He's just sorta here. Ultimately, he discovered a stone tablet, how original for Pegasus, and was possessed by the evil spirit of Reshef the Dark Being. At the end, Pegasus, now filled with Reshef's spirit, begs the main party to seal him away forever with the spirit inside him. Reluctantly, everyone agrees, and this is how the world was once again saved from the poshest American in history. You all remember that, right? The Pegasus is American. It's why he likes comics and manga so much. It's a joke about Western. Anyway, moving on. The final story bit to include here is actually the only neat thing this game does, which is including a post-game mechanic. Although Ishizu once again compels you to return the God cards at the end, you can still use them in your deck after handing them over. I don't know how that works, but that's how it is. Additionally, if you load your post-game save, you will discover a new area for you to traverse called the Hall of Eternity. From here, you can duel some major villains and other characters with much higher life points than anyone else, and they offer you rare cards and a hilariously small duelist point increase by 10 to 20. Oh my god, who even cares at this point? If you're beating Merrick with 60,000 life points, then you clearly didn't need the extra DP, just give me infinite. What a weird game this is. People will remember the story of this game and its predecessor for a reason. They're novel, and allow you to include yourself in the story of the anime you've probably woken up every Saturday morning to watch for years. I really like the pure ambition of Reshef's story, to be clear, but everything about playing the game is such a stressful endeavor that it far outweighs the highs brought by flying to Egypt to talk to nice guy Merrick about the god cards. Reshef of Destruction features the same rules as established in Sacred Cards, but with a fun new twist called lingering effects. Some cards feature effects that must remain fulfilled to stay on the field, such as Exodia Necros, which requires pieces of Exodia to be in the graveyard. This adds about a second to each turn, and god dang do you feel it after a while. Each action requires a field check and is visually performed. Excruciatingly so. The anti-cards in this game are also not nearly as generous because this game has an extremely tight leash around the progression through this game, making any semi-useful card early on prohibitively expensive, and not making as many cards with different type chart attributes available at the card shop. Even the truly unhinged mechanic of not restoring your life points between duels all combines to make this game overwhelmingly difficult in a way that is so against the spirit of Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game to me. I think everyone fantasizes about a game that somewhat replicates the Duelist Kingdom experience, in which you start off with bad cards, work towards good cards, and that's largely what the DM line of games has done. But this game, I think, takes that just a few steps too far. Having a game that specifically features challenge for a set of rules that are already a little too binary to be creating hard modes seems mostly just frustrating and not exactly very rewarding. Reshef revels in its artificial boundaries and increased difficulty without really changing the formula enough to be interesting. This game basically requires you to save scum your good anti-cards so you don't lose the ability to progress entirely. Not to mention that using passwords is a fool's endeavor, because it is as expensive as any good card you could buy from the game shop. Before you even have enough funds to put one in, you'll have a fine enough deck to at least move forward from wherever you were stuck before. Now, in terms of staff, this would actually be the final game for returning director Nobuhiro Yamada, as well as the main programmers behind the last few heavyweight Duel Monsters games. I neglected to mention it in the Sacred Cards video, but Nob Ogasawara, who was the longtime translator for Pokemon games, also worked on both this game and the Sacred Cards. In terms of soundtrack, we see the utilization of several individuals who would work with Konami frequently, and continue to do so well into the 2010s, with many of the sound team working for other huge Konami projects like Beatmania and Metal Gear Solid. Reshef is probably the entire franchise's most emblematic entry of the mixed bag. Great art and a neat original story are all entirely overshadowed by newer, harder set of game designs that are so frighteningly hostile toward the player that I'm left reminded of other Masocore games of the era like I Wanna Be the Guy or a little later Super Meat Boy. And unlike those games, I don't mean it as a compliment for Reshef. If this game is the Dark Souls of Yu-Gi-Oh!, I'm glad they never returned to this well philosophically. I spoke in the beginning about this game being the end of an era. Another component to that statement is that after this game's release, pretty much all games after this, to a certain degree, would be OCG-TCG simulators outside of a couple notable examples. Sure, they would continue to implement OC-led stories and several role-playing mechanics, but games that were more classically simple and represented a game closer to how it is presented in the early seasons are finished with the release of Reshef. I would like it made clear. This game is a very melancholy thing. In fact, when I first conceived of this whole series, it was one of the games I was excited to return to after years of struggling with it as a kid. But the reviewing of this game with a modern perspective has only crystallized the problems it had even at the time. And yet I can't help but love this game. But if you're someone watching this to the very end to hear my thoughts, I would encourage you to be optimistic. A lot of people long for a game like the Sacred Cards or Reshef to come out again, but in reality this formula just evolved. Sure, Tag Force, Nightmare Troubadour, and the final World Championship games are simulators, but they would allow you to participate as your own protagonist in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! And even with many non-lore accurate events taking place to maximize that wish fulfillment factor. I think this was always what people liked about these games to begin with anyway, so definitely look forward to me talking about those games as well. Also because they're going to be a lot more enjoyable for me to play. Thanks for watching, everyone. This game inspires a lot of reactions in a lot of people, and honestly one of the reasons this one took so long to come out was because I needed to sort out my feelings on it. However, with our next game, we take a second step into the inevitable future for almost every Yu-Gi-Oh! Game as a simulator where you duel characters from the show. That game, for next time, is Yu-Gi-Oh! Worldwide Edition. I'll meet you there, Pitbull! I'll see you in the next one. I really hope they all got that. Mr. Worldwide, like Worldwide Edition. Mr. Worldwide. That's what Pitbull goes by. That's his famous moniker that he calls himself. I really hope everyone gets that.